All right. We're just getting Anna online. So just while we're waiting to get Anna, so ask David to come along and just walk the elected members through the approach around the Karapiro Reserve Management Plan and just provide input into that prior to it going to council for resolution in terms of commencing the plan review, I guess.
Yes. Okay. Kia ora koutou. So as George has said, this is to provide you context over the reserve management plan for Karapiro Lake Domain. It is a legislative requirement under the Reserves Act that a reserve vested into council has to have a management plan. So it's time to look at Karapiro and to go through that process. So online we have Anna from Exist, and she is running the program for us. She has got vast experience in this field, and her latest RMP that you will be aware of will be Mangatautari Ecological Reserve, and she is also doing the Lake Ngāroto Reserve as well with Exist. So I will pass on to Anna.
Thanks, David. Is the presentation ready there to load up?
Anna, you're making your mic's a bit funny. Do you want to turn your mic on and off and see if that helps?
Testing. How's that now?
No, that's not good. I wonder, is it
Okay.
possible, Zoe, for Anna to go off and back on? Yeah. So Anna, maybe do you want to go off and then come back on, and we'll just see if that works? We can't understand through the mic at the moment.
What about now without the mic and the headset?
Yeah.
It's a blame me.
Sorry, Anna, it's still not great. So maybe we'll just take a minute and if you jump back off and then try to reconnect, and we'll see how that goes.
Is there anything you can cover, David, while we're waiting for Anna? Like, keep the ball rolling?
Yep, so through the chair. So Karapiro Lake Domain and surrounding area is of ancestral, spiritual, historical and cultural and economic significance to mana whenua. The operative RPM outlines the extensive iwi historic and current day connections to the area and notes the importance of the Waikato Awa, which forms the basis of the lake. Ngāti Koro ki Kahukura hold dominant mana whenua over the site, and they have a lease in Te Manawa or Matariki in the Don Roland Centre, and are the owners of the reserve to the south, to Marawiwi. The site is significant from a historical battle, as we know as of Te Matawiwi. The domain's extensively developed and carefully managed to create a regional, national and international focal point with a wide range of water-based sports undertaken on the adjacent Lake Karapiro, and that is including rowing, kayaking, yachting, powerboating, water skiing, wakarama and dragon boat. Increasingly also, it's a venue for large events such as North Island's schools, cycling championships, car rallies, music festivals, school balls, meetings, conferences and ceremonies such as weddings and civil unions. In 24-25 period, there are currently 37 events scheduled, many of them multi-day events. The Domain caters for up to about 15,000 people outdoors and up to about 1,000 people indoors. Also connecting to Karapiro, of course, is the cycleway, the Te Awa cycleway. The reserve comprises of 7 parcels of land that are administrated by council under the Reserves Act. For context, for the review, we're looking at treaty settlements that are completed, strategic documents developed and reviewed, and of course, new facilities if needed, increasing diversity of the event calendar.
So, sorry, David, just to let you know that Anna is back on as
thank
well.
you.
Thank you.
You're doing a brilliant job though, David. So do you want to carry on and I'll...
Nice. We're going to have to let David lead this one, Anna. Thank you. We can't, well, you're breaking up.
Okay, looking at the treaty settlements completed. So Mana Whenua have completed their treaty settlements and have the opportunity to better express their cultural values related to the area, the Waikato Awa, and their aspirations for Karapiro Lake Domain. Ngāti Kuro Ki Kahukura Claim Settlement Act in 2014 was enacted in the recreational land south of Karapiro, as I've mentioned, Te Matawiwi, along with 3 other parcels were vested back into Ngāti Kuro Ki Kahukura, and a joint managed council venture, Ngā Pai Whenua, are currently managing that. The Waikato River Authority prepared Te Ture, Waimana or Te Awa or Waikato, the version of strategy for Waikato and Waipa rivers. The Waikato Regional Council reviewed its navigation safety bylaw, which governs activities on the lake, and development of Ahuaki Waipa spatial plan will also feed into this. Many RMPs proposed developments have been implemented since the previous one. It's a cafe, the playground, the Te Awa cycleway, and new leased facilities such as high performance centres of rowing and kayaking. The Domain has a significant increase in terms of numbers, and the scale of events and activities has been diversified. Along with the RMP, there are 2 reports that have been done with Horworth. HTL have highlighted the need for additional accommodation to support the significant number and diversity of events held at the lake, and the adequate and the needs of some users and potential users in relation to accommodation. As you know, Council entered into a new management contract in 2023 with GL Events to manage the site. One thing to consider is a deterioration of the lake water quality and the ecological conditions, the highly invasive golden clam that has shown its head, and the likelihood of that spreading to other water bodies by boating and recreating. So that's a concern from a biosecurity threat that needs to be looked at during this process. A better understanding of the climate change process and what that's going to do to the lake. Also sitting further south is new land that is yet to be vested into the Reserves Act, and that's Waipuki and 859 Mangatautari. Those usages will also help inform the reserve management plan. So looking at the proposed scope, previously the 3rd slide, that one there, the top area is what the previous RMP was. So that was back in 2011, and that is the council administered land. Alongside that, you can also see coming down to the bottom, you'll see another small green parcel. So that is local purpose reserve that wasn't in the plan. And we are looking at putting that, because just adjacent to that is the start of a 2,000-metre rowing course. The little island to the south, we're including that as well, because that is vested recreation reserve. So the next slide, and the next one again, and the next one. So sitting alongside this process, we are looking to have Hallworth re-look at their proposal they did around accommodation. The accommodation study that they first did was a Waipa centric. What we have seen with the program of events happening at Karapiro, there is a need to look at the existing accommodation on site. Is there opportunities with that existing accommodation? Is there opportunities for partnership for further accommodation? So running alongside and parallel with the Reserve Management Plan review will be Hallworth doing that study as well, and those two will inform each other and talk to each other. And that's around transparency of the Reserve Management Plan process.
That's a question. So with that, it sounds like additional accommodation. Would that be like a big step level, like something with some stars hanging off it, that sort of accommodation?
Yeah. So through the chair, the first report that Hallworth did, it looked at a need for the Waipa area of a Qualmark 4. But that was Waipa centric. So that took into account Te Awamutu, it took into account Cambridge and the existing accommodation there. Since then, there's been a number of small hotels, the likes of Podium has come through for the cycling, for the cycling area. So they'll be looking at what's on site now, what market does that bring? Because that does support a lot of high schools within your rowing capacity, and also other scouting events, and it's within that price bracket. You've also got your camping facility, which is another price bracket, providing that experience for families over Christmas. And then, of course, in the event space in the Sir Don Rowlands, we've got a higher clientele. So what is missing in a lot of those events are bused to Hamilton. So your accommodations sitting in Hamilton. So it's taking a holistic view, and an RMP will last for 10 years. So it's looking at what opportunities are there on that reserve, and it might come out that there's no opportunities, but we've got to entertain that to see going forward. Okay, next slide, please. So there's the review approach. September through March, it's pre-drafting engagement. That's so that we start with the report to council next month, and that's as part of the Reserves Act, is seeking your approval to start the process. From September through March, it's pre-drafting. November, we notify the intent to review, and then we put a draft plan together. A master plan is from 2024 through to 25 November, April. There will be engagement with stakeholders out there and anybody else that likes to put their information forward. We notify the draft for feedback in June through August. Submissions come through from that feedback, and we have hearing from September through October to hear those submissions. Deliberations in December 25, and then report to council in February 26 to adopt a new RMP. So it is a long process. Next slide, please. So along with this process, we'll look for...
Sorry. Kia ora, David. Can I please just ask you a question on the previous slide? Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And reserve management reviews are never straightforward and easy, are they? But so great to get this presentation. I've just got a question for you, and it relates to the interwoven language of stakeholders versus partners. So we've obviously very clearly got iwi partners on in relation to this really important facility and land. The first stage there in November 2024, it says notify intent to review and seek input in 1 month. Is that a public process?
Yeah, so through the chair, yes, it's a public process. We have reached out to Mana Whenua, and Mana Whenua from Ngāti Kura Kahukura have offered Beth Tuaroa to be part of the project for their representative, and we are awaiting feedback from Ngāti Hawa.
Okay, so I'm just thinking about November leading to Christmas. It's also quite a busy pokai time. I'm just thinking about whether 1 month is reasonable if it's the time you're still pulling together Mana Whenua representation. And you've mentioned 2 of the 4, maybe 5 interested in that land, and there is a lot of interest in that part of the river, as we know. Just concerned that we just check that whether a month leading into Christmas will be sufficient, knowing that you are thinking about that structurally in the project and engagement and participation in the project from our Mana Whenua reps, but just a bit concerned about that timing leading into Christmas, and I guess raising the flag now to say, will it give people adequate time? I'm also really conscious that central government is flagging a lot of work coming through into Christmas and New Year, some substantial RMA reform pieces through Christmas and New Year they're looking for submissions on. And so people's capacity and bandwidth will be compromised through that time, in addition to it just being end of school and the normal Christmas, difficult time of year. So just a note to self. Thanks, David.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I've noted that, so we'll take that into consideration. Along with the project will be a steering group. We'll be seeking a couple of councillors to be on the group, as well as community board representation, Waikato regional representation, Mana Whenua, as I've previously mentioned, lake users from the lake user group, and Sport Waikato, due to the fact that it's a recreation reserve, and adjoining landowner representation. Next slide.
That's clarifying. Just as a clarifying question, just want to get my head around this nice and clear. So it's a reserve, but look, there's a cafe out there. So obviously one can apply to have some commercial activity out there. Is that correct? Right.
Yeah, so through the chair, yes, that is correct. There's 13 leases out there, 12 are community and 1 is commercial. A commercial lease on a recreation reserve has to get approval through the minister. So a lease has approval through the administrating body, but a commercial lease has to go through the minister.
Right.
So we've talked about Mana Whenua engagement. Again, it's Ngāti Kuruki Kahukura, Ngāti Hawa, Waikato Tainui and Raukawa. So we're in the process of pre-drafting engagement on that, bringing them into the project steering group and then drafting the plan. So the next slide. So our recommended next steps, as mentioned, we'll bring a report to you on the 15th of October seeking resolution to start the process. Report will go through to Cambridge Community Board to notify them that we have provided that. Then the late October will be public notice identifying the intent to review, and then we'll start the pre-drafting of the report and engagement with Mana Whenua and stakeholder engagement. Next slide is, I'll take any questions.
Cool. Any questions for David? Yep, Mike.
The other 2 reserves to the south, Waipuki and Mangatautari, at this stage, what's their status?
So through the chair, at this stage, they are both freehold land parcels. And so that'll be a fair way down the track when council does, it'll be coming back to you whether you decide whether they get vested into the Reserves Act. Once they get vested into the Reserves Act under the Act, then we've got to put a management plan over the top of them. So they will be as part of a discussion of this, because it'll be looking at that whole western parcel of the lake and how that aligns with recreation activity.
Cool, Lou?
Just when you said, David, sorry, yeah, I'm right, you're investing it, that means it would have to go to the minister, wouldn't it? It has to go through central government to get that actually ratified.
Yeah,
It
so,
puts a lot of controls on what we can do with that land as well.
so through the chair, the administrating body has the ability through resolution to vest a parcel of land. From then that's submitted through to LINZ to have that registered.
It's one of the things you said earlier that resonated a little bit with me was the fact that previously we'd looked at a Waipa-wide perspective, but when we look at Karapiro in its current environment, it is a national identity. You know, we've got national rowing, national cycling, we've also got national canoeing there. So that would mean that we would have to have a wider perception. And in talking of accommodation and all the facilities, we really do actually rate on an international basis.
Yes, so through the chair in 2010, they had the World Rowing Champs there. There is rumour in the wind that they'll be seeking to get the next World Champs out there. So from an international perspective, Waipa was put on the map in 2010, and NZ Rowing want to do that again.
Well, for me, the accommodation out there that currently exists, I take it from what you've said, that's not counting as a commercial enterprise at this stage. It's sort of in line with the reserve purpose, right? But future accommodation could be either just about, couldn't it?
Yeah, so through the chair, the current accommodation out there at the moment sits underneath the Camping Act. So it's that level of accommodation. So if Hallworth's report leads towards further accommodation out there, then that would open the opportunity to what is it? Is it going to align with the Camping Act, or is it going to align with opportunities for partnership?
Quickly, when you talk of partnership, would you be talking of a commercial enterprise to put some building in, or something like a hotel type of infrastructure?
Yeah, I won't look at the outcomes of what Hallworth might produce. Yeah, we'll wait and see what.
Yeah,
they
fair
come
enough.
back
Fair
with.
enough.
Great. Any further questions? Nope. All right. Thanks very much, David. So we will now go to the Prongia Hall's feasibility study outcomes.
All right, so just by way of introduction, so Justin and Debbie are just here to give an update in terms of where we're at with the Prongia Halls feasibility study and where we, what the next steps might be, and get some discussion and input into that. So I'll hand over to Dustin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, councillors. So just going through the outcomes and where we're at with the Prongia Hall feasibility study, joined by Debbie from the property group. So just providing a bit of background to the feasibility study. So our property services team are going through a number of our building facilities and getting condition assessments done of them as part of a new enterprise asset management system that we instituting. And there's some really insightful data that's coming through that, and some concerning data that's coming through from a condition perspective. Some of the facilities that are included in that were the two hall facilities in Prongia, noting the Prongia Community Centre and the Prongia Memorial Hall. You'll note that one of them is in poor condition and the other one is in a moderate condition. Both of them have between a low to moderate utilization. In terms of the renewal forecast that we've been provided from QSs, there's a fairly substantial cost over the next 10 years associated with both of these sites. So we wanted to look at opportunities and see whether what we have at the moment is providing the best solution for Pirongia from a best practice asset management perspective. Obviously noting the current fiscal constraints that we have. So to provide a bit of context in terms of the sites, we have both the Memorial Hall in Franklin Street as well as the Pirongia Community Centre, which consists of the chapel and youth hall in Crozier Street. And we also had some discussions in relation to the sports centre in Kane Street. This slide gives us a bit of context in terms of where we are in the process. So as the first step in the process, we wanted to get an independent assessment of the situation. So we engaged the property group to undertake a feasibility study. We currently at the end of that stage, moving into a period where Waipa District Council will lead the engagement from then on. So this is effectively the closeout of that first stage of the process. I'll now hand over to Debbie to give you an update on it.
Thanks, Dustin. Okay, so what I'd just like to cover briefly. Now, one thing we're not clear about, there was a report released. Have you seen the report, reviewed it? Okay, right. So we will talk to the project objectives. Yeah, that's okay. So the principal outcomes that council sought us from this feasibility study, the key property facts. So we've looked closely at Memorial Hall and at Crozier, which we call the youth and chapel. We also looked at the sports centre, but we acknowledged that the improvements there are owned by that group, and they have got their own plans underway. A little bit uncertainty of the scope and timing around that, and so we pulled back and focused on the other two. We looked at the user needs. So, I mean, let's face it, the purpose of them being there, the facilities being there, is to serve the purpose and meet the needs of the community. So we needed to understand what the community needs were and are, and how well the buildings align. So then once we understood the user needs, we looked at the potential options, and there were 6 for one and 7 for the other. So multiply, we've got 42 possible scenarios, and we narrowed that down to 5 top options. So we looked at those, how the user needs translated in, looked at those advantages and disadvantages, and then the conclusions and recommendations based on the testing against the project objective, and then the next steps. So we'll just talk to those a little bit more. So the project objective, we worked with council to develop that, and it was to identify the optimal community building facility solutions. So what did that look like? And that it aligned with the Ahiaki Waipa Community Spatial Plan, and also best met the needs of the Pirongia community and in a fiscally prudent manner. So it's been, the options analysis has been developed based on industry best practice and asset management principles. Dustin's been heavily involved in this. And the next stage is for the business case to be prepared by council officers and taking in consideration the specific fiscal constraints that council is currently under. So the property facts, the key thing here with Memorial Hall is that it was built and developed and funded by the community back in 1922, and its local purpose reserve. So DOC essentially owns the land, council administers it and owns the improvements. The influencing factor on that is that council's not free to dispose of it. And It's 435 square metre floor area made up of those components. And it's not earthquake prone, so it's 50% of new building standard at importance level 2. Then we looked at Chapel and Youth Hall. So that was bought on the open market from the Methodist Church in September 2009 from endowment funds. So council's free to do with that building as it so chooses, on the basis that any proceeds from the sale go back and are used for the benefit of Parongia community. So it's only a criteria, and it's the benefit of the community. So it doesn't state how, it's just got to benefit the community. So in this case, council owns the entire property and is free to do what they choose with it. So it's 321 squares between the two buildings made up of those areas. So then we had a look at the user needs, because we needed to understand how these were used, what the community actually wanted these facilities for and when frequency. So we did a survey from October 23 through to the end of January this year. We received 13 responses. Some were from community groups, some were individual. And the overarching preference aligned with the user's current facility. So if they currently use the Chapel and Youth Hall, that tended to be what they wanted to continue to use because they'd found the place that best met their needs. And also, there were a few issues with the management of the Memorial Hall at that time. So people weren't so encouraged and enthusiastic to use the Memorial Hall. But there are the numbers. 69% of the respondents said that they prefer to use Chapel and Youth, and 16 said the Memorial, and 15 said the Sports Centre. So basically it was driven around what they're currently doing and the type of activity that they do. 77%, no surprise, said that they thought Memorial Hall had the most historical significance, and Chapel and Youth 15 and Sports Centre 8. So once we understood the user needs and the type of activities, the type of spaces they wanted, the frequency, we could have a look at what the buildings provided and how they could be reconfigured, looked at, rebuilt, whatever, to meet those user needs. And as I said, 42 scenarios. We looked at the different scenarios against the evaluation criteria. So we looked at how they best meet the user needs, optimise limited resources, so best bang for buck, fiscally prudent, right thing to do, and considering risk and acceptable timeframe. So how long were the community, how long did they have to wait until they actually got what they needed from these premises? And that's when it came down to 5 top options. So first of all, we did that, and then we went out and got some rough order of costs, and frankly, it was staggering. So we went back, and which it was probably no surprise to us, I have to say. So then we went back and narrowed that scope down, and then re-looked at the rough order of costs. And the numbers out to the right there. So look, the 5 options, they are what they say there. So the first one is do the deferred maintenance, just the deferred maintenance on the Memorial Hall and Chapel and Youth Hall. So no changes, no modifying the spaces to meet the user needs, deferred maintenance is 1.5. Then option 2 was undertake the deferred maintenance on the Memorial Hall and sell Chapel and Youth. Because from the user needs, we determined that there's more space than is required. But it's not the right space. I mean, to start with, it's not accessible. So fundamentally, it's not right, but we have more than we need. So then 3 was undertake deferred maintenance and light refurbishment. So on Memorial Hall. So this is making it better aligned with the user needs, and sell Chapel and Youth. Now the sell Chapel and Youth, because we know we can, and we can use the proceeds for the community. Some numbers are bandied around, and we think conservatively there's probably 500K to be enjoyed from that sale. But of course, we never know the purchaser, whether they look at the improvements as an asset or liability. I mean, that's all about testing the market. But these numbers are the net rough order of costs. So where it says sell, it's take the proceeds off. 4 is demolish the existing Memorial Hall, but retaining the front facade and the memorabilia in some form, and selling the Chapel and Youth and building a new hall or new facility on the Memorial site. And the 5th option is to transfer ownership of Memorial Hall back to DOC. So we don't want it anymore, and upgrade the current improvements at Chapel and Youth. And obviously, the first and last one, we're keeping Chapel and Youth, so we haven't got proceeds from that, and yeah. So that was the detail, and that's where we landed on them. And then we did some analysis. So we had a look at when you compared one against the other and against those criteria. So this is where we acknowledge it gets quite subjective because the criteria are not weighted. So we could have really drilled into it, but really it comes back to yourselves. This is where it's what's more important and where do the values go on those criteria. But we landed in this order of the options because option 2 is we undertake the deferred maintenance and upgrade the existing improvements at Memorial Hall. So we bring it up to a reasonable standard, and also we do some modifications to better align with the user needs, whilst being fiscally prudent, because remembering the objectives. And we're also getting best bang for buck. And working down, I mean, we look at the bottom number 5, for instance, it's the least costly. But under that option, there's a real risk that DOC don't do anything when you say, look, we really don't want the responsibility of Memorial Hall any longer. And so you're left with the perception, the community still believe that it's council, so you've still got to continue to look after and maintain it. And then what happens with the historic value of that and that community value? So we looked at the numbers, we looked at the user needs, we looked at the condition, we looked at what you could sell, so the property status, what you couldn't, and that's the order that they came to. And so this is showing the numbers of where they ranked, but as I say, the key thing here is they're not weighted, because we could have spent a lot of your money doing that, but actually didn't really see the value in that without the discussion. And so that's where we get to on the discussion, because the next step is what do you want to do in this regard? And I will just come back and say, remembering at the beginning there, we looked at the sports centre in our discussions with them. David and I had a couple of meetings with them, and there was quite a gap between the meetings, but there was not a lot happening. So we didn't get confidence. They've got some fantastic ideas. They've got a lot of enthusiasm, but there was a long time between their decision making. So we didn't feel that that was going to happen in a timely manner.
So based on what we had said earlier, that the brief to the property group was to come up with the best long-term asset management solution. Obviously, when you see some of the numbers that are sitting in that report at the moment, and the current constraints we have in the 2534 LTP, those numbers are fairly eye-watering. But it is what we see as the best long-term solution for Pirangia. We do obviously then need to, if we go ahead with that, we do need to look at alternative short-term solutions that will bridge the gap until we're in a position to be able to pursue that full, the more long-term asset management solution. So what we, just a bit more, that a lot of the options need to, as Debbie said, need to be considered in association with what's being decided at the Pirangia Sports Centre. And there is a need for future engagement. On the right-hand side of the slide, we have a number of potential future community engagements and partnership discussions. And part of the discussion today is to get some idea in terms of how we move through those different engagement sessions. And we've got the upcoming Aotearoa consultation in October to November, and we don't want to overburden the community with too much consultation, but we did have 13 respondents to the original survey. So it would be good to get a bit more of a broader idea from the community at the same time. And the Ahuaki consultation may provide a good opportunity to get some of that feedback. And yep, so open for discussion, both in terms of the long-term solutions that the property group has come up with, as well as short-term solutions, as well as some of the future community engagement and partnership discussions.
Yeah, surprise.
Yeah, this is my community. So I just thought, I'm really happy with the work that's been done to this point. This has been a conundrum for our community for quite a long time. And like you've identified that the Pirongia Community Centre is the one that's most used, but it's really suffering from a lack of maintenance, or like I guess it's out of date and stuff's not working properly. The chapel leaks. I was told that even to turn the power on is a health and safety risk for a lot of the elderly people or the seniors that might be going there for exercise classes and that, because they've actually got to get up onto a box to be able to reach the switch and things like that. And there's no accessibility in terms of a ramp or anything. So, that they've got great challenges in the existing facilities. And then with the community, the Memorial Hall, we've got a very passionate group who really want to see that retained because of its heritage value and just the long connection with the community. It's quite an historic building in itself. So I could see that the two, it's never going to be easy. I think that you've set out the options really well, and I'd support it going out for some good consultation with the community to get conversations going. And perhaps it's been avoided in the past because it is, such a sensitive issue. But really the community centre can't carry on for much longer, because of the condition. It's just not up to scratch really. And so doing it through Ahuaki is probably a really good idea. That's a chance to get a broad part of the community engaged, because you do want to get that buy-in from I suppose a lot of people in the community, not just the ones that use the community centre now, and not just the ones that are really focused on heritage, because it's a growing community and it needs to be provided, with fit for purpose facilities in the future. And it's when you get across the board participation that you're going to hear, I suppose, to get a really good indication. So I think really happy with the work you've done so far, and I think it does make sense to now take it to the community. I can also say too that I'm pretty sure the neighbours to the community centre, and I didn't mention this, Dustin, when I met with you prior to this, is that there's a sort of like a retirement village. They are really keen, I understand, to purchase that. I don't know if you'd heard that, because they'd like to expand. And so there's probably a ready buyer there already. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Happy to see this come through, and I think going through to the consultation process with the community is the best next step. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've got a little bit of a history with the Memorial Hall, War Memorial Hall from the RSA, because we granted quite a bit of sums to that just a little while prior to being closed. But when we did the survey, you would have had the situation where that hall had been closed for earthquake assessment for quite some period of time. So it's had a period where it was unoccupied for quite some time. I know we had to take some of the storage of some of the memorabilia back to our RSA. The second interesting fact that it is considered to be a memorial hall, because it does have a war memorial emphasis on it. I don't think it's registered as such, but it does rate in significant buildings in our register at the RSA. So whether that's a national register or not, I'm not sure. So I would also ask the question is that when you talk of the two halls, which of the two halls would be the most, up to spec as, what I'm talking, which would take the most to actually upgrade?
So the costs are relatively similar.
Yeah.
The Parongia Community Centre's got a lot more functionality in terms of spaces. So there's less to make reconfigurations of spaces and the like, but the condition of the Memorial Hall is substantially better than that of the Parongia Community Centre. So from a renewals perspective, there's a bit more that's required on.
I think that's great. And why I'm saying that is I think you want to go back to the community in the current environment and with the fact and advertising the fact that you are restrained financially, but that's going to be your biggest problem.
And through Chair, it's also, it's these numbers that we've got in the report have been provided by a quantity surveyor. So that's the numbers that we are referencing.
And the other thing was that I was involved with TA Sports, with Parongia Sports and with Sport Waikato, was a consulting with having a Parongia hub at the rugby ground. So I was quite well aware of what they're proposing there, which is quite a significant community hub. So, yeah, you don't want a duality of that. And as I say, when you're doing long-term plans, you really want to make sure that you've got all your eggs in the one basket.
Sorry, can I just add something through the chair? Our suggestion, our next steps recommendations was that you actually come up with a preferred option that is communicated to the community, because otherwise you sort of have this, everyone has their own thoughts. If you come up with a preferred, it steers them. So that, I'm just aware that you haven't seen our report, but that was one of our recommended next steps, was come up with a preferred and take that out. So, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, thanks for that. Through the chair, just listening to that, I mean, hey, there is no money around. That's the first problem, but no community wants to hear that. And I guess what I'm hearing is a typical council approach to this, quantity surveys, doing it under all the auspice of health and safety and all the rest of it. But there's an option here. Is there an option of, if the community took this project on, like this, the actual, what's the one that's in better condition? The community centre, isn't it?
Memorial Hall.
Yeah, Memorial Hall. If they, because it's more usable, etc. If they took that on, offloaded the other one, use the funds for that can happen. Then there's still obviously the shortfall of around $1 million, but that's doing it with paying, contractors and all the rest of it. But what if the community came up there with a solution, and they came with a grant, and we can do this? Like, just leave it to us and we can do it. Can that happen in 2024 in council? Because it would save a hell of a lot of money and possibly get this project over the line.
That's sort of the Cambridge Town Hall model, right? Hey, just a question. Is this happening outside of the LTP? Because none of those numbers have made it into the LTP budget, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So the timing's kind of slightly odd here, that you're running an LTP process and this is like a bolt-on. Give us your thoughts on that. How?
So through the chair, the amount of work that needs to continue to do it, we align this with the 2737.
Just sorry, through your chair as well, just noting that if that option were to proceed, there may be an option if the Crozier Street property was sold, that at least that amount of money was reinvested in the Memorial Hall in a cost neutral way.
And just through the chair, my other point there is just remember that if the funds are going to be used from Crozier to do that, we've still got, while the works are going on, you've still got to have a home for the activities, because you don't want those activities to stop in the community because they haven't got a home, because sometimes that's hard to get them going again. So just a little bit of logistics there, but.
Sorry, just to add on to David's comment there, it isn't great alignment with the LTP conversation, and we acknowledge that, but we need to have a lot more conversation with the community yet, which will line up down track.
Yeah, just the timing is kind of weird though. If this is now into the, an LTP for what, 4 years away we're talking, or 3 years away. So, yeah, and you've got Ahuaki as well. It's kind of just, you're talking to the community in multiple different ways, and you don't want an expectation gap.
Yeah,
Because
so,
I think this is going to happen now.
yeah,
You're-
so,
We're thinking 3 years away.
yeah, so this is very much on Lisa's agenda in terms of how we frame this, and speaking with Kirsty too in terms of how we might frame this within the Ahuaki consultation. So there's lots of internal conversations going on in terms of how we try to bring this into the mix, considering that, yes, we do acknowledge that the timing isn't quite where we would like it to be.
Yes, I can appreciate that. And I just want to pick up on Mike's suggestion actually, because I think that's a great one. Because if there was an opportunity to just put the problem to the community, and one of the ways to handle it would be to provide a grant from the proceeds of the sale of the community centre to a group in the community that then would try and get that upgrade done to the Memorial Hall to make it fit for purpose. That's a different conversation to the one where we select a preferred option, which is going to be a contractor and probably have a higher price tag. Because it puts control at the community level. And also at the time of the closure of the Memorial Hall, there was a group that was formed that included some really skilled people in a building sense. I don't know if those people are still there. I think they are. But if that could be reactivated, that would be the nucleus of a group that could pick this up. Yeah, but you can't really, you kind of need to have some pre-conversations to see whether or not it's likely there would be a group like that would sort of emerge from it. Yeah, so yeah, but I thought it was a great suggestion, because at the moment, it's not likely to get into the LTP that we're preparing for. But if it was a grant where that sale could be effected, you know, say in the next 12 to 18 months, it is something where the community could see something happen much earlier than 2027.
Just want to make one mention. There is one hall out there, Pahui Hall, that did exactly what you're talking about. They raised the funds and got themselves together. They raised it and built a new hall and a community hub.
They renovated
Yeah, renovate, yeah,
their old hall,
and
just a
quite
little bit bigger.
significantly.
Yeah, but they did that without having the nest egg of proceeds of sale from other assets. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I'd say, Susan, was that the RSA would probably consider some of our working staff, some of our staff that would probably help.
Oh, okay.
You know, that like people like John Wood, who was
Yeah.
actually a member of that.
Yeah.
Quite a number of people have indicated interest. I could raise that to executive tonight.
With your indulgence, the complication though is that we've got another
Yeah, you
community.
need another-
Well, but we have another community project underway, which is the skate park,
That's right.
which needs to raise about $500,000. So, but if you had this group of people, they wouldn't necessarily be doing community fundraising to get it going. They would leverage that money they had and their connections to maybe get a lot further, along the road to, completing it.
But yeah, so
And-
let us take some of these great thoughts and ideas away and talk about them, you know.
Yeah, and I can give you the names of those people that were part of that Memorial Hall group, if you want,
Andrew,
Thanks, Marcus.
you
Yeah,
sound bad too.
I-
It's an us thing.
yeah, it is a you thing, because I was hearing Anna perfectly clearly, and I think Dale Marie was too. So you're not hearing me very well, huh?
No. Send me a message or something.
Yeah, look, I'll talk to Claire about it, because it's just, you've got three different groups there by the sound of it, if you include the skate park, and somehow or other you're going to have to get some unity and alignment, because we don't have a lot of money to satisfy all parties.
Okay.
Can we just see Del Marie at G Talk, so we get the same thing, so that staff know that it's ours.
It's ours. To go. Say something, Dale Marie. We just want to see if, see, it's an us thing.
Okay,
I'll say something. Waikato. There's no cats in the river.
We don't want to hear you now.
Del Marie,
It resonates terribly in the chamber.
you are kaput. Hey, but, and I hear what Andrew says, and he's totally right. The difference here is there is a vehicle that, as of rights, the money could go into a seeding fund for this. So sorry, for me, I think the options just, they're not options. Georgina, take it back and go back to this community and let's see if we can, because a lot of people love those old churches, halls to turn their houses. They get really excited about them and they'll pay good money for them. And, survive to 25. 25 is going to be a good year. Next year will be worth more than this year.
Sorry, through Chair, just in terms of, sorry, I don't know if you can put that last slide up, the last slide. So just in terms of that future community engagement, just a little bit more in terms of if there's anyone we've left off that list and some thoughts in terms of the order of consultation, if there are any. I think Councillor St. Pierre mentioned the Lions previously. Yep.
Oh, yes, those groups that, have already been involved, like the Lions run a monthly market at the community centre, so they'd obviously lose that venue. And so I suggested that they would be a good candidate to include as for consultation. Yeah, and also the Heritage and Information Centre, because that is the home of all of those heritage zealots, that want to protect the Memorial Hall. But this will be good news for them, actually, and they may well become really strong allies. Yeah.
Right. So I had that effect. Dale Marie's written a message. Dustin, can you check with someone? Zoe will pass that message on. Yep, sweet. Right, any further questions? Nope. All right. Thanks for your report. Cheers, everybody. We are signing up.
Thanks.
Bye all. See you next week.